Hi, this is John Pettigrew, and you're listening to Talking Through My Hat, a podcast that explores bookish businesses, the fantastic people who create them, and what those people have learned. I'm a hat wearer, a recovering editor, and the creator of Future Proofs, enabling editors and authors to work better online. To find out more, visit wearefutureproofs.com or follow me on Twitter at John_Pettigrew. Welcome to Talking Through My Hat. It's mid-April 2018 as I record this. The sun's shining, and yeah, it's quite a nice day. And to make things even better, I'm indoors talking to Suzanne Collier, publishing consultant and founder of BookCareers.com. Welcome to Talking Through My Hat, Suzanne.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
How do you describe yourself to our listeners as a professional kind of publishing person?
I'd probably describe myself as a career development consultant, but that sounds very broad and very vague. But really, what's probably broader is that if you're in the world of work, whatever age you are, whatever type of publishing you're in, whether you want to get into publishing or whether you want to get out of publishing, and you're focused on your career, then you should probably talk to me.
Excellent. Plug done. Excellent. How would you describe BookCareers? How does the website, the service there relate to you? Because you have, the Suzanne Collier part, but then there's definitely the kind of the BookCareers part. How do they sync up?
I think a lot of BookCareers is intertwined, obviously, with the Suzanne Collier. I've tried in recent years to try and give both a slightly different identity, which is why I've now got two websites. I've got Suzanne Collier and I've got BookCareers. But BookCareers is a careers consultancy that focuses on books in all formats and all sectors. My original strapline for BookCareers.com was, if you love books, book your career with us.
Excellent.
We focus on the kind of thing that no one else in publishing originally did, your personal development and your career ambitions. We're not recruitment consultants. We don't find people jobs. We're independent, impartial, and give qualified career guidance. We're recognised by a trade association, the Career Development Institute, and on a national register of career professionals. And they recently shortlisted us for an award for the BookCareers.com salary survey.
Oh, excellent. So it's kind of, you're more about personalised individual advice than, I need a new job now.
Well, I do the people that I need a new job now.
but it's the advice side that you kind of really hook into.
I'll give somebody the tools that they need to help them find their own job and their ways forward, but I won't physically find that job for you or place you in a job.
Yeah.
Very often, if you're in the minefield of something like redundancy, and you've got a deadline within which your money's going to run out, your money's going to stop, you're in a very pressurized situation, you need to find a job now.
Yeah.
And perhaps your decision-making process about which job and which career choice you then take might be floundering because you're dealing with all the emotional side.
Yeah. Yeah, redundancy can be, I've been through it twice.
Every career now, that there's no such thing as job security. And my job's been made redundant 3 times.
Oh, you beat me.
And I've had all different types of redundancies. I had one where I had to work 6 weeks' notice. I had one where the whole company was called into the office at 5:45, and we were given 15 minutes within which to clear our desks.
Oh, wow.
The company was going into administration. And I've had the one where, I've had just like a week's notice. So it's been almost immediate.
Yeah.
And I've just had to hand over the reins to somebody else. And I like to think that actually this is something that I can offer, is that I've personally been in every kind of career situation that you can imagine. I've personally experienced it. It doesn't mean I bring my problems to the table when I'm helping clients, but it does mean that I have huge empathy and understand, particularly when we're dealing with things like work-related stress or workplace bullying, some of the not so nice things that might occur in somebody's career, that I do really understand the emotional aspect of how somebody could be feeling as a result, I'm able to support somebody far better.
Yeah, that's great. So, as kind of as we were getting into there, you've had quite a varied career. How did you get from working for other people to setting up your own business? Why did you make that step out by yourself?
What I would say is, so for a long time, I had two careers. So by day, I was a special sales or business development manager, and by night, I'd do the careers advice. And the careers stuff I originally started doing back in 1989, probably now before some of your listeners were born, I'm afraid. So I'd been working in book publishing for 6-7 years. I was chairman of the SYP, the Society of Young Publishers. Back in 1989, I was the youngest person ever to chair the SYP at 22 and 5 days, a record I still hold today.
Wow, very good.
I know. And then I became the first time to chair it more than once in 5 times in 10 years, because a lot of your listeners also wouldn't know that the SYP had a few problems mid-90s and nearly closed.
Right.
And that's when I came back, I formed a business committee, and together we saved the SYP from closing. I'd always been asked to give careers talks and careers advice. So the first time I was chair, for example, I was giving a talk to a room full of master's students, which means they were the same age as me. And I was how to get a career in publishing. And what actually happened in that first year chair, it's quite a bit of drama, is that I witnessed somebody commit suicide.
Right.
And I was a passenger in the last and only car they overtook. And this poor young man drove into Gants Hill roundabout at 80 miles an hour. And I ended up having counselling from the Samaritans. I ended up with what would probably now be called post-traumatic stress. And what I did at the time is I investigated actually becoming a counsellor for the Samaritans, but I decided that really wasn't me. What fascinated me was the world of work and business. And so I started to go down the route of careers counselling, which was far less emotional, but also very, very supportive of people that have all sorts of issues or facing whatever quandaries they're going through. So whilst I was doing both while I was still involved with the SYP, then when I stood down from the SYP for the final time in 1998, that's when I put the wheels in motion to start BookCareers.com. What drove me to do that is that I was giving careers advice before it was fashionable to do so. Book publishing was really interested in careers 20 years ago. I'd been on what was the Book House Advisory Committee that had originally set up MVQs in publishing. I'd watched project after project start up and fold as soon as the funding was withdrawn, things like what was the publishing NTO. And I wanted to set up something that was self-funding. For a long time, we were the only industry that was like a careers service. I was going around to schools, colleges and universities and did so many things under the radars of publishers. And when I had conversations with publishers were never interested. The response always was, we've always got more than enough applicants, thank you. Why do we want to encourage any more? And as a result of inclusivity issues, there's been a huge sea change in the industry. But I'd like to state that BookCareers was one of the very first to bang the drum.
Yeah.
And we talked about salaries, like anybody in publishing got paid for doing the job.
Well, yeah.
You know, we're always under the illusion that you had to pay for the privilege of working in publishing.
Yeah.
And all anybody ever said is that salaries in publishing were low. But let's be honest, how do you ever know whether to make an effective career choice if you don't know what the salaries are?
Yeah.
And when I did the first salary survey, which was actually under the guise of the SYP, I got berated by publishers in the pages of the bookseller.
Yeah.
And one of the publishers in particular complained. They said that the salaries that we'd published in the salary survey were appalling. They were far too high. I don't want to say they were appalling, but you get the drift.
Yeah.
But you get the drift. And it's great that in 20 years on, that publishers now buy a copy of the survey and they ask me to benchmark salaries within their company. Yeah. And at the moment, everybody's talking about the salary gap. But we have details, that's BookCareers has details going back 20 years of equal pay issues, diversity, how people got their jobs, and lots of employment demographics that publishers wouldn't be able to access otherwise. And what actually, I'm going to go back to your original question, what actually made me decide is, I think quite a lot of people know that I had a cruel hand of fate 12 years ago this week, where I had a minor car crash on my way to work with major consequences, in that I didn't know I had concussion. And a colleague came and picked me up, took me to the office, whereupon my line manager said, "I'm really sorry you've been in an accident. Can you make sure your work is done before you go on holiday?" So I stayed in the office and I did a whole day's work.
Yeah.
And I found out 2 weeks later that I'd had concussion, and I went off sick for a prolonged time, or I went off half off sick, where I was keeping BookCareers going as a going concern.
Yeah.
Whilst I eventually had to give up my day job. And over the years of my recovery, I've turned BookCareers into a viable business.
Yeah. Kind of as you touched on there, one thinks of it maybe as you said, kind of careers, advice and guidance, but you touch on so many other things, particularly, you're probably very well known, Anne, for that salaries survey, which just makes, getting that information out there is really important. But, diversity work and this kind of stuff. Is this sort of outgrowth and new things part of what you like about working for yourself? Did you think you'd be doing these kinds of issues originally?
I was always on all the bandwagons. I think that's what to say. Somebody had a conversation with me last year, and I could tell that they were reading notes they'd made, either their colleague had made about me in the past, and the word they used me was political.
Was that a compliment, or?
Yeah,
probably not. I
couldn't say, but I wouldn't so much say that I'm political, but I'm a very honest person, and I like to feel I have an awful lot of professional integrity. And what I can't let happen is I can't let unjustness and unfairness go unmentioned. I can't sweep things under the carpet. And this is a thing I've been going on about unpaid internships for years and years and years. And what probably many people don't know is how many conversations I've had with publishers where I have intervened in situations with interns where I have phoned up the publisher and asked for travel, for pay, for all sorts of compensation to be paid to interns, and where I've got a whole batch of emails going out in the next week where I still
having to do it.
And I'm still telling publishers that their internships or what they're parading as work experience does not actually meet national minimum wage or living wage.
It's the problem with being such a comfortably middle class industry, isn't it? That there's this unpaid internship is kind of a tradition, because you can live off mummy and daddy's sort of subs for however long, because of course you have a comfortably middle class family, and it's just it's not true for everybody by any means,
and this is the thing, is that I'm you mentioned middle class, and I never really saw myself as middle class. I joined publishing at the age of 16 from my local comprehensive Bill High School, Ilford, and I have said in the past that when I first started working in publishing, I probably talked a bit like this because this is my Essex origins. But now after 30 plus years, I'm afraid I talk like everybody else, but I still do not listen to Radio 4. Why is it everybody, thinks they have to listen to Radio 4?
Oh, well, I can tell you why I listen to Radio 4. It's really annoying first thing in the morning when I have an o'clock radio and it makes me get up. Okay. Anything other than listen to John Humphreys in the morning, Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. We're actually talking to some people at London Book Fair and discovered, it tend to have this idea that publishing is a very southern thing as well, because it's all based around London. And I discovered I was in a conversation with 5 people and not one of us was from the south. Yes. Stockport, Leeds, I'm a Scouser me. It's great. And I've been living in the south for far too long now, and it kind of does the accent gets worn off, but it's there behind you. And there's a much more varied set of life stories than we tend to assume.
Yes.
If you assume that everyone is from Buckingham or something, it leads to some very odd decision making, as you say, things like the internship thing that people can afford to work for free for 2 weeks. It's fine.
Yeah. And it brings me back to something else, is that we've seen in recent times people go on road shows around the country. Why would you go on a road show around the country to recruit, to bring people to work in London? Why would you do that? Surely, if you want, and I think we're going to see a bit more change on remote working. And I think one of the things that will change with remote working is when people, say, of my generation and below, make the final decisions about remote working, because my generation, we came attuned to the internet came into our lives. Yeah. People below have grown up with the internet and can understand about how brilliant remote working is. When they start making they're making the business decisions, then we'll see more remote working. And I think it's the remote working that will help publishing become far more inclusive than it is now.
And there is that balance, isn't there? Actually setting up branch offices. Why do publishers have all their offices in London? My first publishing job, I was made redundant because they moved to London. And it was a case of, well, why did you move to London? We moved to London to be at the hub of the electronic communications network. And you think, hang on, I think you've misunderstood the nature of the electronic communications network. The point is, you can be anywhere. So maybe we should have branch offices in Birmingham, Manchester, and Newcastle, and Glasgow, and Liverpool, and wherever, so that people can work where they are instead of having to move to London when none of us can afford to live.
Yeah,
especially on publishing salaries.
The whole thing is why would you have, I can understand having some collaboration or having a weekly meeting or a couple of meetings a week in an office, but why would you bring everybody into an office where the truth is, and flexible working makes things so much more people so much more productive. Yeah. If I think back to the original time that I was off sick from the accident, I knew that I could work 16 hours a week, but I couldn't tell you what 16 hours.
Yes.
And this is the thing. And, if you want to increase inclusivity and not just ethnic diversity or social diversity, but disability diversity too, I'm sure that there are lots of roles that could be completed by somebody. If you said to them, you work for us 16 hours a week and we don't mind which 16 hours they are, as long as you clock on and clock off. Yeah. So for example, if you're having a good time at 2 a.m. in the morning until 4 a.m., that's for 2 hours of your 16. If the world of work became far more amenable to this, that would see a much more diverse publishing and inclusive publishing.
Yeah, and that was something that, when I was managing teams of editors and stuff, there is this thing, why do we have to work 9 to 5? That's completely irrelevant to me. Unless you're in a job where you have to be able to talk to people who are also working 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And as editors, we aren't. Very rarely do you actually need to talk to someone at a particular time. Most of your work can be done whenever's convenient. And it's odd. But anyway, as we think, we talked about the kinds of stuff that we've learned about the world of work and kind of the ways that you've learned to see that and see some of the issues there. What have you learned about yourself over the last, 20 odd years of doing BookCareers?
Probably the biggest thing. I mean, I was always into personal development, and I've been on so many personal development courses, and that I've always tried to learn new things that I can pass on to my clients. But I don't think that there's anything in particular that I didn't know or I hadn't known about myself before starting up BookCareers. What I would say now that I know for sure is that I never give up, that I believe that every situation is retrievable apart from physical death. And it's something that I pass on to my clients wherever their own situation. And I've had several people in publishing comment that they admire my bounce back ability. And that goes back to, you know, I've personally been in every workplace situation that you imagine. I mean, I've been in the office and I was asked to resign and I refused, and the chairman stood up and shouted at me and said, in that case, you're fired. You'll never work in publishing again. At which point my mobile phone went off, and it was the sales director from Orion saying, understand you might be looking for a short-term contract. So I did win a tribunal against a publisher. I've won a tribunal for a publisher. That I just know that every situation is retrievable. And that's probably something that I wasn't aware of before I started BookCareers.
Yeah. Once you've really been put to the test, you can see it. Yeah.
Yes.
So what do you find hardest about the business, running it kind of day to day, week to week?
I'd say I'm trying to think about this. You caught me on the hop with this question. Probably about time. Is that I want to do everything and I love to do everything. And it's one of the things why I'm so interested in productivity and sharing some of my productivity experiences is because you do have to say no, and you do have to pull up and pull back sometimes. And it's about knowing when to say no as well.
So when you're thinking about BookCareers and your own stuff, do you think about how you're going to grow the business over the next 5 years or maintain the business or whatever? How do you approach that kind of forward planning side of it?
Yes, I do. And I have plans. It's no secret that I plan to add a publishing arm to the BookCareers.com portfolio. We're actually going to start publishing career books.
Excellent.
The launch title will be my much delayed book, originally commissioned 18 years ago. But it had a different title then. It's now going to be called How to Job Search in Book Publishing.
Excellent.
And then I have a number of other publishing projects and authors that I'll be working with.
Great.
What I hope too is that within the publishing portfolio of BookCareers, that when perhaps I get clients who are going through redundancy. I mean, some of the most highly talented and highly skilled people that find themselves on the job market through no fault of their own, that they can have almost something as an intermediary career whilst they're searching for the things that they really want.
Yeah.
Obviously, they'll be paid, but it's the plan for the part of the plan for the future is, somebody perhaps who's in editorial that because of redundancies losing a little bit of confidence, but they've an excellent track record that you can bring them in temporarily to help with the business.
Excellent. So what's the thing that keeps you coming back day after day to BookCareers, to your consultancy work?
Love. I can't keep people floundering when I know I can help them. And this was my saving grace after the car crash. This really was my saving grace. The industry was making redundancies left, right and centre, and I could hardly stand up. And I was in the middle of a permanent migraine. My actual permanent migraine, for those that don't know, lasted for 7 years, 3 months and 3 weeks. But I put together a job club to help those in the industry who were unemployed. I told myself I had to be present a morning every other week. We found a room. The very fantastic PR company, Three Monkeys, gave us a room for free every other week. And I told myself I wasn't allowed to cancel because of my illness. And during the first year, I only cancelled 2 meetings, one due to flu and one was a snow day. And my opinion was, if one of the best things about not being in work is not having to struggle in when it's snowing. So, during that first 15 months, I got over 40 people back into work during the worst of the recession.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I know today, like many of my clients, they're all still grateful for me, and some say that I saved them. But the truth is, I don't think they honestly know how much they saved me. I mean, most of the publishers have recruitment freezes. This was no easy task to do. And we've now repackaged what was the job club and run it as a 1-day training course, how to job search. And after 9 years after the initial job club meeting, it's still as popular now as it was then.
That's fantastic. Well, that's an excellent story to finish on. Thank you very much, Suzanne, for your time and for sharing some of that stuff about your past.
Could I just give a little plug?
Absolutely, go for it.
Is that on the 25th of May, I'm going to be doing a mammoth cycle ride of 140 miles over 3 days with an awful lot of hills for the Book Trade charity, who supports some of the work I do. They supported me personally when I was unable to work, and they can really help other people in publishing.
Yeah, we'll stick a link in the podcast description for anyone who wants to give money to Suzanne for that epic cycle ride she's going to be doing.
Not to me personally.
Well, indeed. On Suzanne's behalf,
okay,
to the Book Trade charity, who do fantastic work for people in the trade who need it. So thank you very much for your time, Suzanne.
Thank you.
For everyone else, I'll see you next week. Thanks very much again to Suzanne for that epic interview. Fascinating to discover things about somebody who you've known for a while. I didn't know, for example, that she was still the youngest ever SYP president, which is pretty impressive. It's really interesting to cover some of this ground, that, things like the pay survey that BookCareers has been doing for so long, that was so controversial to start with, and is now really a kind of a core thing everyone looks forward to every year to see what's going on, particularly as we think more about issues of equal pay, about the class gap, north-south divide, flexible working, and all these kinds of things. Really interesting. And don't forget to visit uk.virginmoneygiving.com/Suzanne Collier to donate to her epic 140-mile bike ride in aid of the Book Trade charity. That's it for this week. Come back next week for my own confessional career path check your privilege exercise. See you then. This was Talking Through My Hat, a podcast by John Pettigrew, founder of We Are Future Proofs. Please let me know your thoughts by leaving a review at Apple Podcasts or by commenting on the website, myhat.wearefutureproofs.com. You can subscribe to this channel at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Our theme music is from hooksounds.com.